welcome Mayor Marsh and George Garklovs.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So we're here as the Loveland Voice. George and I are. I'm the editor and George is the associate editor of the new online, the only online news magazine based in Loveland that is also led by women. And
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Mayor Marsh, thank you so much for joining us. So I wanted to kind of just get to it. We've been hearing a lot about the Urban Renewal Authority. Is that even the correct name? Is it URA or LURA? Can you?
Yeah, so URA stands for Urban Renewal Authority. The L in front of it stands for Loveland Urban Renewal Authority. And so currently the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority is the Loveland City Council. That was a decision that was made, I'm guessing 2002, 2003, so 2002 is the year that an Urban Renewal Authority was established in Loveland.
Okay, so those can be
renewal plan.
So those can be interchangeable, URA and LURA.
Yes, they are. The board makeup will change in the very near future if council votes to accept the changes that are being proposed by Centerra.
Okay, so I want to take a few steps back because I think, well, I'll just say for myself, this is all a lot. It's a lot. It's confusing a little bit. I know there's a 36-page document on lovegov.org, and I'm hoping you can like enlighten us a little bit on what's in there and why it matters to Lovelanders during this conversation. So yeah, we'll start with, what is the Urban Renewal Authority, URA or LURA?
Okay, well, let's do the URA. So it's a program, a government program that goes back as far as like the 1950s. And if you think about the name, urban, renewal. So the program was inspired by cities like maybe Detroit or Los Angeles or Chicago that have areas of a developed town that have fallen on hard times. There might be a lot of crime, drug activity, vacancies, gangs. I mean, just an area of town that is very sketchy. And so trying to get people to invest to revitalize those parts of town that have, a risk. It's a risky investment to buy that building, to buy that block of buildings, and pour your hard-earned money into it, not knowing if you're ever going to have a tenant, not knowing if you're going to be able to sell it for all the money you've invested into it. So the URA program was devised to incentivize investors into revitalizing those kind of sketchy parts of town. So when a person, an entity, is willing to invest, you take the base level of tax revenue coming in at the year before you set up that development to be part of this URA program. So you take the base property tax, and usually property values are very low because it's a sketchy part of town. Usually there's little or no sales tax because, again, it could be a vacant building. And so that sets your base. That base will naturally appreciate over time. So that gets to be the confusing part between the county assessor and the city, is trying to say how much that plot of, that block or that building would have appreciated naturally with no redevelopment, so that you have this base. What you then do is TIF, tax incremental financing. So you have an investor, you've established the base value, revenue value. And by the way, those revenues go into our general fund. So before you set this up, all of that property tax, all of that sales tax is going into the general fund, which helps pay for our police and our fire, our city staff, our library, our rec center, our parks and rec, road maintenance, fix your potholes, sidewalks, all of that's going into the general fund. So when you set up this URA and you decide this portion of town is going to be redeveloped, the increment, either the property tax increase or the sales tax increase or both, are going to go back to that developer development for 25 years.
So how does that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how does that, I mean, you were describing communities that don't necessarily look like Loveland, like Detroit, Los Angeles. Like, how does that connect to Loveland? Or can you like make that connection?
Sure. If you think about when this the first urban renewal plan, and hopefully they have that in the packet, that goes back to 2002. So you had areas of downtown. One of the first projects was the old Home State building on Lincoln, which is now the Lincoln Place Apartments. Okay, that was one of the first projects. That development, the Lincoln Place Apartments, is in what is called the Finley URA. So in the Finley URA, Gallery Flats across the street at 6th and Lincoln, that's a project. They put the old county building, the old library, in that Finley development. The museum is in that development. So you have several buildings that are in the Finley. Then you have an overall downtown URA. So particular buildings, particular areas in downtown. And so it was legitimate in the sense that we had vacancies, we had sketchy parts of town, you know, it was a legitimate URA. So we currently have 3 URAs, the Finley, which I believe expires in 2030, the downtown URA, which expires in 2027. These are 25-year programs. And then the biggest URA is Centerra, which expires in 2029. So where, you know, where the city of Loveland took a lot of heat from outside communities was over the Centerra URA, because that was non-developed area. It was farmland.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to me, that part in particular.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of criticism because it, you know, I think you have people at the count. So let me back up here. So when you're talking about the tax increment, say property tax increment, not sales tax increment, but property tax, that increase in property value back in 2004, and if we're talking about Centerra, when they set up their URA, at that time, the city of Loveland, acting as the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority Board, when they set that up, it not only diverted Loveland property tax, it diverted Thompson School District tax, it diverted the county tax, it diverted things like our EMS services, Thompson ambulance, let's see, pest control. So all the taxing entities in that one decision by the Loveland City Council, acting as the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority Board, diverted all of that property tax for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So you know, I pulled some because I just got a spreadsheet. You'll be able to see it on Global Relay. So Thompson School District, you know, prior to, you know, 2004 and stuff, when this was being set up, none of the property tax was diverted. Last year, the property tax collected in the Centerra URA just for Thompson School District, it was $7,597,168. So the total diversion to date for Thompson Schools for the Centerra URA, well, it's not just Centerra, it would be the downtown URA in Finley, but the real, you know, the real big dollars are the Centerra portion of that is $73,227,606.01.
So Mayor Marsh, I have a question.
Yes.
These tax dollars are diverted from the city general fund. In the URA agreement with the developer, what is the community, what is Loveland supposed to get in return for diverting those tax dollars? And has that obligation been met?
Good question. So Centerra is particularly complicated. So I hope I don't lose people. You have to consider public improvement. You know, tax dollars are for public improvement. So Centerra is complicated because there's layers. You have the URA, you have the Centerra metro districts, and you have, oh, I just lost my train of thought, the master finance agreement. So between those, you're repaying the debt, right? For public improvements, essentially. So part of the original, master finance deal and part of this 2004 URA for Centerra was a lot of regional improvements, I-25, 34. It includes, between those, the metro districts, the URA, the master finance, it includes things like landscaping and wayfinding signs and all of these things. Regional improvements, as originally written, were to be CDOT type of projects. Okay. Councils, like the master finance, agreement and things have been reconsidered by council, and amendments have been done over the years. I think we're up to 10 amendments, I think. So originally, if you take like Boyd Lake Road, which is where High Plains and all of the lakes at Centerra was, that was not a regional road. So that would not have qualified for these dollars. A subsequent council, subsequent to 2004, changed that. And they made Boyd Lake Road a regional road, which meant that these dollars that were for, bigger improvements could now, you could repay the debt for Boyd Lake. So all of that expansion into, 2 lanes in each direction and roundabouts and all of that is now considered part of that improvement. I don't want to go too far into the weeds because anybody watching this is going to get lost.
Sure.
It is complicated. So the concept of a URA is to revitalize a downtrodden area of a developed area. Loveland kind of made a major change by doing Centerra open farmland. And with farmland, my understanding is, and I'm not an expert, I'm telling you what I've learned over the years, farmland has its own way of determining property value. It's the previous year's crop. What did you sell the crop for? So it's its own. So my understanding is the base value is like 364,000 or something for Centerra. So Centerra started off originally with something like 500 to 900 acres, and I've never been able to get a clear answer whether it's 500 or 900. Subsequent council allowed additional land to be moved in. So the total acreage for Centerra, I believe, is about 3,000 acres, but the acres that can be in the URA are only 1,750. So not all of Centerra is URA. Individual residences, single family homes are not in the URA. It is commercial, office, retail, and multifamily.
So I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Have a full thought. Okay. So how does, the big things that I'm picking up, like $73 million plus have been diverted from Thompson School District to all of the URAs, including Centerra. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the bulk of it is Centerra. You don't really see much contributions, before 2004. In the so let's see. I'm going to try to get you some accurate information.
Well, and just even to simplify while you're thinking about that, like, so $73 million from schools, turned into what? Just to be
you know, you would probably want to go to some of the Centerra presentations where they kind of list the improvements that they've done. It gets really complicated again because of the layers. You have the metro districts. You know, so they also, like metro districts, the Centerra metro districts have, I think, contributed. Let me see if I can find it. Centerra metro district, which is your commercial portion, it has contributed, if I'm reading this correctly, 30 million. So those, no, that's not correct. I'm looking at the wrong one here, and I don't want to give out wrong information here. Okay, so Larimer County for URAs, and it's not just Loveland's URA. There are smaller URAs in Timnath and in Fort Collins. They have had $91,616,482,000 diverted because of URAs. There is Irene Josie, our county treasurer, just sent me this updated spreadsheet yesterday. So, you know, so if you look at Loveland property tax that has been diverted because of the 3 URAs, I believe we're at about 15 to 17 million that's been diverted. The county, Larimer County, because of the Loveland 3 URAs, is, I believe, over 30 million. And then Thompson is 73. Yeah. So when we talk about Thompson School District, one of the things to bear in mind is that the state of Colorado has a per pupil minimum. So they say every student has to be allocated X amount of dollars for their education. It used to be about $7,200 annually per pupil. I think it might be up to $7,700, $7,900. So again, this whole concept is very complicated. So you have this 73 million that should have gone to our Thompson school that did not. So now you are below the state minimum per pupil that is contributed, right? So this is where backfill comes in. The state will backfill the monies lost up to the per pupil minimum. So where does that money come from? From the state of Colorado that we all contribute to. So when I met with Gordon Jones a few months ago, you know, what is the amount that is backfilled? You know, they, the amount that they lose as of a few months ago was 1.3 million annually. So of the, you know, 7 million or something that is lost each year to Thompson, let's see if I can see that. So Thompson annually is losing like 7,597,168 as of 2022. All but 1.3 million is kicked back in by the state of Colorado based on this per pupil minimum. It is not a state statute. At any time, the state could say, we're not going to do that anymore. And it could go away. There's nothing obligating them to doing it. So to me, that's a concern if I were Thompson School District. So up until now, the city of Loveland, acting as the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority, has had sole say in our URAs, our 3 URAs. The state and Commissioner, former County Commissioner Steve Johnson was one of the advocates. The state changed legislation in 2015, which took effect January 1st of 2016, that if you are going to make any major modifications to existing URAs, or you're going to create a new URA, those other taxing entities must have a seat at the table. So in forming or changing an existing URA, the county gets to have 1 representative So Larimer County gets one representative. The school board, the elected school board, not the, not the staff, the elected school board get one seat at the table, which is what is happening tonight at Thompson School District School Board meeting. They will be selecting a member. The county will
That's
soon
tonight.
That's tonight. That's why I said you might want to send people since you're, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
doing this segment.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
collectively, the other districts, which is like your ambulance, Thompson Health, and your pest, collectively, those districts get to have one seat. So if they succeed in forming a new URA, which is what they're going to attempt to do, it would be the 9 city councilors, somebody from Larimer County, so that makes 10. Somebody from the school board, that makes 11. Somebody from the collective special districts, that makes 12. Well, they don't like to have an even number because you could have tie votes. So the mayor gets to select a person. That makes any new URA or modified going forward will be a 13-person board. And the idea was, from the changes that were made in those legislations, is that these entities that are going to lose this property tax and or sales tax will have a say. So on January 24th is a study session totally on URAs. I'm sure I'm going to learn some things there. I don't consider myself, I consider myself well educated on this issue, but not an expert. So I'm sure, some of my 2+2s may not be correct, and I'm looking forward to being corrected. And I'm sure there are things that I have no idea about. But what is about to happen, from my understanding as of today, with limited information, is that Centerra is going to be asking Loveland to take the acreage across the street from Target along Eisenhower, almost at I-25. There's that empty parcel, farmland. There's 2 parcels on either side of that parcel, but the parcel that the McWhinneys and Centerra have, that's open land. They're going to ask that all or a portion of that be taken out of the current Centerra URA. And the county calls the Centerra URA the Crossroads 34 URA, just in case you see that.
Just to make it easy to understand.
Yeah, exactly. So when you see like the spreadsheet from the county, it's going to say Crossroads I-34, I-25-34. But that parcel of land is currently in the URA, meaning at whatever point that was added, and it may have been part of the original, I don't know, there's a legal definition to establish a URA. You must determine, a third party does a study, that it is blighted. And that's a very important legal word, blighted. If you look up the definition of blighted, it's a menace to society. It poses an immediate risk to health and safety of the public. There are like 10 check boxes, and I believe you have to meet 4 of the check boxes. Some of them are like inadequate roads. In other words, you don't have enough roads to transit. You don't have sidewalks. You have dead end roads. That applies, if you apply those, and that's just 3, to a city, that makes sense why it may contribute to economic, deficiency, right? Applying that to farmland is, in my opinion, an abuse.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, what kind of roads or sidewalks does a farm need?
Intentionally, they do not. They're wide open so that your harvesting equipment can run across and your sprinkler system can run across. But that is part of how they determine that acreage across from Target is blighted. And I think there were photos taken of like a stack of pallets. You can go back and find that original study. So one of my questions for the conversation on Monday on the 24th, Tuesday, is there was a blight study done to put that acreage into the Centerra URA. When you pull it out, and now so I should back up. I believe what's coming forward is that there's going to be a request by Centerra to pull out that acreage from the current URA. And then they're going to want to establish a new URA called the South Centerra URA. So one of my questions is, when you take it out of the existing URA, which I say is a major modification to the URA, and now you want to use that same land to create a new URA, do you need a new blight study?
Mayor Marsh, I have a question that's going to backtrack, because
Okay.
one thing that confuses me, the Thompson School Board is going to pick a representative to this URA board.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my understanding that the URA is not even in existence yet. Is this putting the cart before the horse, or is it a foregone conclusion that this URA will become a new URA? And a point of clarification, who determines that this will become a URA? Is it the current LURA board?
You're asking the exact same questions that I have in my notes. You know, so the current URA board, which is the, city council essentially, if you say that pulling that acreage out of the current Centerra URA is not a major modification, then the current city council board acting as LURA could do that. But I believe there's an argument to make that that's a major modification, which would require the new URA board. And if you look at our rolling calendar, so we have the study session on January 24th, next Tuesday. That's a study session to bring all of council up to speed. I've asked that the city invite the Thompson School Board, the elected school board, and members, representatives from the county and representatives from any of the special district be invited to attend that meeting and have unlimited questions and comments. Whether I'm going to be granted that or not, I don't know. But those are legitimate questions. Who determines that once we establish a new URA, unquestionably, that has to be the new board. So my understanding is, former County Commissioner Steve Johnson, one of the reasons he pushed for these changes was because of what the city of Loveland, because they've lost a lot of property tax revenue. And I'll make this comment: when you talk about diverting funds, you're diverting Loveland's property tax, and commercial property tax pays the most, right?
Right.
And you're diverting it from the county as well. Well, in the case of like open land, like say Centerra was, you're taking a level of city services that was minimal. You don't have a lot of police calls or fire calls on the farmland. You don't have a lot of road maintenance or sidewalk maintenance, storm water, electric. We need to get word out. So my understanding of new URA law is, that changed in 2016, is that by state statute, you must notify other taxing entities that are going to be impacted by the new URA or changes, and, once it's ongoing, 30-day notice, right? Well, my understanding is Mark Schaefer, our superintendent, was notified this past Sunday, and the county has just been notified. So, you don't have a lot of time to get up to speed on something that is going to be very impactful for the next 25 years. And there will be people that love this, that say, this is a wonderful, we're going to have all this new development, and that is a legitimate argument. The farmland, that piece of land right now, let's take a look at the 150 acres or a portion of it, whatever they want to put into a new URA, requires almost nothing in the way of services from the city of Loveland or from the county or from the school district or, you know, from the ambulance company, you know, once you develop that, you know, the roads are gifted to the city. The stormwater, you know, the sewer, all of that is gifted to the city. You're going to have police calls if there's commercial retail and shoplifting or traffic accidents. The police, if somebody is shopping and they have a heart attack or a stroke, there goes your fire department and your EMS services, right? The Thompson ambulance service. You know, we're going to have an increase in services that we need to provide. But if it's like the current, you know, URA, and I don't know until I see what's being proposed, and I have not seen that, you've diverted the increased dollars that should have gone into the general fund. You've diverted it away. So you want us to do more with the same amount of funds. And in my opinion, this is what is harmful to Loveland, is our general fund isn't getting the dollars it needs. So you have to be very sparing in these type of projects. You know, with Cleveland Station, that was a project. I supported that one. Mm-hmm. You know, because you renovated an entire block of historic buildings, which in my opinion is important to the character of downtown Loveland. So it's not an absolute no on these things for me. I was a no on natural grocers. They did not preserve a historic building. I support natural grocers coming in. They had done a long-term land lease, I assume at least 99 years land lease. They were going to build that natural grocers anyway. So a cause was created by asking them to put windows around the perimeter and to build a larger overhang. The natural grocers didn't request that. We requested that, and it was a cost of $500,000. That made it one of our projects, so that now those monies will be diverted for, in this case, 25 or 30 years. But that natural grocers is going to create more police calls, more fire department calls, more traffic, more wear and tear. And the money isn't going into the general fund to allow us to hire, you know, another police officer or a firefighter, or we need more staff at Chilson or the library. We get no monies to do that. So you have to be kind of stingy in which ones you're going to do.
So just to like kind of like bring this down to
yes,
the level of my brain, are we, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know it's more complicated than this, but basically it sounds like we're diverting money from schools that should, according to what URAs are supposed to be for, be going to revitalize our downtown area, urban areas. Mm-hmm. Instead, that money is going to support private development of farmland.
So, well, so in this, yes and no. So it can only be used for public improvements, right? So, okay. But so this is how I would, in my heart of hearts, would look at it. Other developments that we do, think about the Ford dealership. That's not in a URA, that super big Ford. So they had to pay for all of that themselves, right? When you do a URA on, you know, privately owned land, you're using public funds to build the roads and the sewer and the lights and the stormwater to your own property in this case, right? And so your property is now worth that much more money. As a vacant lot, it had, you know, this value. Now that it's got this value, and it was public funds that paid for those things too. So, you know, the argument on the other side would be, well, the public is going to get whatever they're going, you know, like the promenade shops, you're going to have a shopping mall, you know, and after the 25 years, the city will get that property tax. And the school district will get that property tax.
Okay.
And you've made the land around it more valuable. So there are arguments on both sides.
Okay.
I come down very hard on our general fund is already stressed. We already can't build a new library, a new rec center, fire stations, paying our employees enough money, having enough employees. We are already stressed. So I want to be very judicial on putting things into a URA or diverting those funds. It should be done very sparingly, in my opinion, and it should be done legitimately. I don't consider farmland blighted. I believe we have a lot of developers who develop without being in a URA and tax dollars diverted. And the city of Loveland, when that area is developed, is going to have to spend more money servicing it. Pay attention to the school, the school board. It has to be an elected board member. The school board cannot say, okay, Mark Schaefer or Gordon Jones, you be our rep. The county can. The mayor can't. I can select whoever I want.
And then is there anything else that we should know?
Leave open that, I may have misunderstood things and I'm going to get an education on the 24th. I don't have any inside information about what's being proposed, what's coming forward, or the URA taking the land out, creating a new URA. But right behind it, if you look at our rolling calendar, is modifying, amending the master finance agreement. And that's what reduces our sales tax that we collect in Centerra from 3% to 1.75. And then there's another item, I don't remember whether it's February or March, of additional incentives for Centerra for this. There's a lot coming. And to me, it's disgraceful that we last night voted to not allow public comment on resolutions. The city attorney acknowledged last night that most of what we're now talking about is going to be enacted by resolution.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary.
It is scary, and it's, I think, deliberate, and sometimes it doesn't feel good to be part of this entity that's doing this.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful for your service. Always.
Yeah,
always,
do what I can do, right?
Yeah. And thanks for your time and for this education, and we will get the word out, and hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, George, wherever you are.
Thanks, George. Sorry, George. Bye-bye.
Bye.